Pleasure to come to Kollel, especially Tchilas Hazman. I'm not very good with remembering names or faces, but I do think I see some Purim Chadoshas here, and I'm happy to see that. And I want to tell all our new Avreichem, you made the best choice. Came to the best Kollel in Yerushalayim, and I'm sure that you're going to enjoy every moment, and you're going to have a Gevaldig Aliyah. I don't know how to say Gewalding in English. I don't think there's a word like Gewalding in English. Amazing would come close, but not really the same. Gewalding is Gewalding, and I'm sure this is the place to grow in Torah. So the sugya of Muktzeh is a fascinating sugya, and it's interesting that Minchas Rosh Masechet Shabbos, I would guess, somewhere between 20 and 25% of the Sefer is on Muktzeh. There's a lot of material on Muktzeh and a lot of Chidushim. So for me, it's a simcha and a good opportunity to go over the sugyas of Muktzeh. And today will be somewhat of an introduction. 5 tamim, 5 reasons we find in the Rishonim why did Chazal asa tiltul Muktzeh. Rashi Rosh Medabram B'Kol Mokoim. First and foremost, of Rabbi Seinu Harushonim, Rashi and Toises Beitz Yud Beis Amadalef, right? Also, Muktzeh Gzeire Shem Yovei Lahoitzi Mershus Lishus. It is very common, and it's a risk that anything a person has metaltal, he might carry out of one domain into another. Moitzi mishus l'shus. Chazal didn't want to answer being metaltal everything because it's impossible, and it would infringe and diminish Onik Shabbos. But in as much as Chazal would minimize tiltul to prevent hoitzor mishus l'shus. That's Rashi and Toises Beitz Yud Beis Aleph. And when the Rambam Perek Chov Daled in Hilchos Shabbos writes 3 new tamim, the Rabbit says, why not stick to the time that we find in the Gemara? Shabbos Kuf Chov Daled Umit Beis, the Gemara Meforeshes, Tiltul Gufei, Lav Mishim Hoitzor Gazlu. So the Gemara says, the entirety of Tiltul Mix is actually Archoka Mishim Hoitzor. So the Rabbit, in his Asug on the Rambam Perek Chov Daled Hilchos Shabbos, follows in the footsteps of Rashi Toises, the very first Rishonim, that the Yisrael of Tiltul Muktzeh is a Gzera and a Rachoka of Hoitzor. That is number 1. The Rambam, Perek Chov Daled, Yud Beis Yud Gimel, writes 3 reasonings, 3 tamim. And the Magen Mishnah is Miyashiv Shittas Rambam. What about the Gemara? Why does the Rambam ignore the Gemara? The Magen Mishnah says that Gemara deals with Gzeres Kalim, and that is the forerunner of Muktzeh. Muktzeh is B'tkufas HaMishnah. Gzeres Kalim was B'yamei HaNeviim, and Gzeres Kalim was annulled, and Muktzeh is a different takana, but Chazal did not recognize and did not accept Gzeres Kalim. And the Gemara, when it says Gzeres Mishum Yitzur, that's Gzeres Kalim, that's not Muktzeh. That's the derech of the Magen Mishnah to resolve the tema. Why does the Rambam ignore a tam that's in the Gemara, and he comes up with new tam? So the Rambam has 3 reasons, and each of these 3 is very important and fundamental. So I want to read the Rambam. Also chachomim letaltel miktzeh zvorim b'Shabbos kederech shu oise b'choyel. Umipnei ma nogu be'isur zeh. Amru. ומה מזהירו הנביאים, וציוו שלא יהיה הלוכך בשבס כהלוכך בחול, ולא ישיחה שבס כשיחה סחול. שנאמר ודע בדבור, קל וחוי משלא יהיה טלטל בשבס כדילול בחול, כדי שלא יהיה חול כיום חול בעינו, ויובוי להגביה ולתקן כלם מפינה לפינה מבייס לבייס, או להצניע בונם וכיועצה בהם, שלא יבוטל, ויושב בבייסוי, ויבקש דבר שיסעסק בוי, ונמצא שלא שובס, ובוטל הטעם שלהם ובתוארה, למען ינוח. Is this one reason or 2? Loshen Rambam mashma for 1. even though one might wonder. The Rambam starts off this halacha, Divrei Nevi'im, Muktzeh tzachov v'daber nocha. Shelo halicha b'Shabbos k'halicha b'chol, dibure b'Shabbos k'dibure b'chol. And the Rambam writes, Kal v'chomer. If he's going to be metaltal chafetzim, he's bored. He's bored. Yosef Botel. V'yevakesh davar. He's going to look for something to do. What a nebuch. He sits Shabbos at home. He doesn't go to work and he's bored. And the only way he could take care of his boredom is by schlepping furniture from one to the other. It's a crazy man. You don't have a Sforim Shafa. Take out something. Make a Gemara, Shulchan Shiur, Musa Sefer, Sipur Tzadikim. You're bored, so you're gonna break your head off and schlep furniture from one room to the other. But there are such people in the world. So does the Rambam mean to say that Muktzeh tzachov v'daber nocha, shelo halicha b'Shabbos k'halicha b'chol, dibure b'Shabbos k'dibure b'chol? That is also because he might work hard and he's going to be mavatal leman yanuach. L'cha'ora, Muktzeh tzachov v'daber nocha is just kedushas haShabbos, not a gezerah that he's going to be mavatal a mitzvah. It is just to add on to kedushas haShabbos, the hargoshas haShabbos. Yakiru b'unecho v'yedu ki me'itchi min ha'chosar v'yamachosar Eidish shemecho. But the Rambam seems to say, the Nevi'im said Shabbos needs to be different. If it needs to be different in the way you walk and in the way you talk, definitely needs to be different in the way you act. So, Chazal were afraid, if Shabbos is going to be like any other day, and the person won't do a malacha because he's aware that there's Isa Koras doing a malacha, but he doesn't go to work and he has a lot of spare time, so he's going to schlep. He's going to arrange his home, schlep heavy things. Ve'botel tam she'omra Torah leman yanuach. Leman yanuach is not a mitzvah to say. The Rambam clearly defines it's a tam. Botel tam she'omra Torah leman yanuach. From this Rambam we learn that a person is required and expected not only to adhere to the mitzvahs, he also should adhere to Tameh mitzvahs. And if the Torah writes Leman Yaniach, the Torah wants you to rest. Yes. Yoim menucha ukedusha. It's not only kedusha, it's also menucha. The Torah wants people to rest on Shabbos. Leman Yanuach. So the modern people that they Shabbos is a social law. It is so. It's about kedusha, but it's also lefi pshutan shadvarim about menucha. And if you're going to schlep stuff from one room to the other, from one floor to the other, botel tam she'omra Torah leman yanuach, Torah wants you to rest. I wrote a tshuva. Yom Kippur and Tisha B'Av, could you wear sport shoes, sneakers? Lafi halacha, if there's no leather, you could wear it. But I wrote that it's not the right thing. Botel tam she'omru Torah v'nisam es nafshasechem ne'ilas hasandal. It's one of the chamishu inuim. So Chazal clearly say if there's no leather, it's muta. But I wrote it's muta, but it's not right because after all, so the reason there's a difference in leather and other materials because in days of yore, other materials were very soft and very thin, and you could feel every pebble, every stone, every rock, and that's why it's a inui. But you cannot wear your most comfortable shoes you have at home. People don't wear leather shoes anymore, only on Shabbos. And as they come home, they throw off their shoes because the leather shoes aren't really comfortable. All week they wear sport shoes. So what type of a venisam asnaf would that be? If you're wearing the most comfortable shoes, is it also to wear sport shoe sneakers? No, it's mutar, but it's not right. Bottle tam she'omru Torah l'manyan. This is what we learn from this lesson. So l'manyan is not a mitzvah to say. And if a person works hard on Shabbos and he schleps stuff from one room to the other, he's not over on a loisa, so he's not a mevatla mitzvah to say, but bottle tam she'omru Torah. That's number one. Second reason that I'm reminds. V'oid. That is specifically Klisha Malachta Leisa. And one of the coming Shiur, maybe the next year, we will B'chlal talk as Klisha Malachta Leisa Dina Muktzeh. Or maybe it is a remnant of Gzeres Kelim. Klisha Malachta Leisa is specifically about Kelim. It's a Kli. And it has different halachas than all the other Muktzeh. Only B'Klisha Malachta Leisa is that of Tzarech Guf and Tzarech Makoymoi. So maybe B'chal it shouldn't be defined as a Dina Muktzeh. But reason number two in the Rambam is specifically Klisha Malachta Leisa. If he's going to be metalta Klisha Malachta Leisa, he has to clean his hand. So maybe out of hergel, out of habit, he's going to do a malacha with that kli. If he's going to be metalta a pen or a cell phone from one room to the other, he might just, out of habit, use the pen. Definitely use a cell phone. You can't. People usually use their cell phone 20 times every second in the modern world. So that, the second time in the Rambam, is specifically about Kli Shemalach Le'esa. Time number 3, and this is once again a big chiddush. מפני שמקצה סוהם אינם בעלי יום ליויס, אלא בטלם כל ימיהם, כגון התיולן ויויס וקרונויס, שכל ימיהם הם שייסם המלוכה. והם ימות על ההלך ולדבה ולטל, ושאר יום הם נמצאו, שלא ישוב שוויסה לקרס. לפיכך, שוויסה מדבורם האלה, היא שוויסה שווה לכל האדם. ומפני דבורם האלו נוגע ויסתל ויעשו, שלא לטלטל אדם בשבס כרם הצורך להם כפי שיספר. Reason number 3 is also fascinating. Chazal wanted a shvisa hanikeres. So there's an issur of binyan that most people aren't builders. They're not in the construction business, so they never build. Yud Aleph Malachas Meseder Abbas, Charisha, Zriya, Nisha, but most people aren't farmers. And they never do these malachas. And then there is Seder Or, Shoichet, Mashit, Ma'abed, Mechatach, Koisev, Moichik. Everybody writes today, but once upon a time there were scribes. Most people didn't write. When you wanted to write a letter, you went to the scribe of the town. It was a special profession to make ink and to make a kulmus. So most people don't engage in most of the Lamites Malachas. Chazal wanted something that would unite the entirety of Klal Yisrael, Shvisa, Hanikeres, Hashuva B'chol Adam. That's why they were going to tell. So I said many shiurim about using electricity and electronics in Shabbos. So the first Gedalim to deal with the question of electricity goes back 130 years. The Weiss and the Masham, the two greatest places of their generation, Galicia. And since then, probably thousands of articles and memoriam were written about this. Nobody really knows exactly what's the issur of closing electrical circuits. Not even the Minchas Osher, even though we wrote 10 shuvas about this. And Chidushim Gedolim. Weiss says it is Moile, the Chazan Ish Boine, the Minchas Osher says Makabe Patish. And every now and then somebody comes up with a new patent, a kosher switch, a kosher motorcycle, a kosher dos, a kosher yens. And I say, if there's anything today which could be defined as a shvisa hanikeres lakol, shvisa shova lakol odam is not using electronics. Put away your smartphone, put away your cell phone, and that is more than anything else in our time. A shvisa hanikeres lakol. So the Rambam makes 3 different reasons. Bottle tam, Shemi Yovel Asas Malocha by Klisha Malachta Leisa, Shvisa Hanikeres, Meshuvah b'kol odom. Those are the three reasons of that Rambam.
More than driving? More than not driving?
I don't know more. Driving would also be a shvisa nikeres. So if anybody, you know, we are already quite advanced with autonomous cars. And because of a person could get into his car without doing a malacha, with all kind of grumis, which is already in the market. And he sits in the car, and the car will be programmed in advance when to take off, where to go, when to come back. And it'll be a challenge. And we might not have a clear reason to asa. And we will say Shvisa Nikeres V'Kol we can't be Machadish Gzeres. But one of the Asoides which I wrote, trying to be Magda Uvdin Dechoyel, I say transportation is Uvdin Dechoyel. So recently I got a shayla. There's a kehillah somewhere out in America in which most balabatim use scooters to get to shul on Shabbos, not electrical ones. But they use scooters to come to shul on Shabbos. One Rav said, it's a Issa Gomer. The question presented to me was not could you use a scooter or not. But my Rav Paska that says, sir, could we give an aliyah to a person that uses a scooter, and do we need to be choshesh that he's menasach yayin? No. My tshuva was menasach yayin. Oh, don't go overboard. Menasach yayin, you could still drink his wine. If his Rav Paskins, it's okay. You could give him an aliyah. Could you use a scooter on Shabbos or not? So more than 100 years ago in Galicia, there was a big pulmos when the first bicycles came out. Is it legitimate to ride a bike on Shabbos? Some Gedolim said yes, they didn't see any reason to asa riding a bike on Shabbos. Others said, Im ein shotim, shem yetaken chuvis shel shayotin, ve'ein menagnin, ve'ein melagnin, shem yetaken klei shiur. Sometimes, you know, something breaks down on your bike, shem yetaken. Others said, it's a new zera. You didn't have the authority to be going zeras. In my opinion, transportation is over than the choil. Because the Navi says, Shavu ish dachto. Al yeitze ish me'okoyme. And we said a few moments ago, Shabbos is a yom menucha. So ish dachto. Al yeitze ish me'okoyme. Ozel kemanda ozel achinga. So, transportation is also. So a little children's bike, tricycle, nobody said, oh, because that's recreation. I differentiate between transportation and recreation. Maybe in the modern world, a scooter, which is not electric, is no longer transportation. Because anybody that really wants to use a scooter as a means of transportation, can use an electrical one. I don't know. But maybe Shabbos, you can't use the electrical one, then the simple one, the manual one, would once again be a means of transportation. So this is me'inyan le'inyan shalom ha'isuinyan, just because someone asked. So what about a scooter? Would that be shvisa nekedes, or cars, or traveling? I also think riding would be a shvisa nekedes, because unlike days of yore, today everybody rides. Oh, nobody rides. You're right. Nobody writes anymore. I'm an old timer, you know. These are my tools, and I have notebooks. So to me, I would never stop writing, because then I could make a siyum on pens and I could make a siyum on notebooks. Those are my two greatest siyums: a notebook and a pen. So coming back to Muktzeh, 3 + 1 is 4. The Ramban Beresh Masechet Beitzah comes up with number 5. And the Ramban says that Chazal were masmach tilk l'muktzeh v'hechinu. And the reason Chazal said Muktzeh, they wanted you to prepare as much as you can Erev Shabbos. Don't leave anything for Shabbos. Because if you're going to need to prepare food on Shabbos, you might do a malacha. And therefore Chazal wanted a limit the ability of Tiltul to bring about a situation that people will prepare anything they want to use on Shabbos from Erev Shabbos. And that is approach number 5. So we have 5 reasons why Chazal asked Muktzeh. How many types of Muktzeh are there? And I don't mean to ask how many Gedorim in Issa Muktzeh. That is interesting. The Chayodam, the beginning of Siman Samachei in Hilchas Shabbos, the Chayodam writes there are 4 types of Muktzeh, 4 different categories. Muktzeh Machmes Iso, Muktzeh Machmes Mitzvah, Muktzeh Machmes Mius, Akse Medate. 4 different categories. The Beis Yosef comes up with 6. The Feres Yisrael has a very choshev introduction to Hilchas Shabbos. The Feres Yisrael Mishlayis, before Masechet Shabbos, he called his Kuntas Kalkolas Shabbos. And today, with this explosion of wonderful Torah literature, there are many, introductions to Hilchas Shabbos. But the Feres Yisrael still was a going to be a soul, and still a lot of Chidushim in Kalkolas Shabbos. And he writes, Yud Beis Gedorim in Muktzeh. The most extreme is the Meiri in the beginning of Masechet Beitzim. And the Meiri writes, Dine Muktzeh Rabim Hem. B'chocham Echad made a list, and he came up with Kemat Chamishim Dine Muktzeh. 50 different categories of Muktzeh. Unlike the Beis Yosef and the Chayodim, the Kollel Shabbos, he doesn't give us his list. How did he get to 50? I have no idea. But I don't think it's really a machlokes and halacha. What it brings to mind is Bava Kama of his Nezikin. And the Mishnah says above his Nezikin. Bava Kama Dalet and Beis of Oishia says Yud Gimel. Rav Chia says Chov Dalet. And it's not really a machlokes. The question is, how do you define Avos Nezikin and what do you include? But there's no nafkamin in halacha between Tana de Masnisen, who speaks about Avos Nezikin, and Avoshi is 13 and Avchi is 24. And the Gemara only deals, so why does the Tana not count this, and why does Avoshi not count that, and maybe, Yesh B'chlal Messiah Muna, and I think the same, whether there are 4 categories, or 6, or 12, or 50, it's not really a machlokes in halacha. The question is, are we dealing with klolim or with protim? But that is not what I want to talk about now, but rather, kama gidrei isur yesh b'muktzeh? 5. The most common halacha in Hilchas Muktzeh is tiltul. Mitchilas, Siman Ches, Shin Yud, Tiltul Muktzeh, that everybody knows. But in reality, Achila, Hanoah, Shimush, Negia, Tiltul. 5 different sugyas in Muktzeh. So the most fundamental one is Tiltul Muktzeh. And all the halachas we will learn in the coming weeks or months will be about Tiltul Muktzeh. However, Muktzeh la'achila, chomor tfei me Muktzeh l'til. Rashi Beis him at the base. Rashi writes, Muktzeh is also in a Torah, and that's a choneh derabah. Tosha said, Eruvin lamet chesed at the base, and the Rashba in the beginning of Beitzah, they wonder on Rashi. Muktzeh is not also in a Torah, that is a havim in it, in Psochim im Zayin im at base. But the Gemara rejects that argument, and the Gemara clearly says that Muktzeh is also midirabanan. Achona derabah has nothing to do with Muktzeh. She'iltis derev achai goin she'iltim im zayin clearly says Muktzeh la'achila is min Torah, and that is achona derabah v'hechinu. What is achona derabah? So many of the sugyas in Muktzeh are on Shabbos. Many of the sugyas are on Beitzah. And I never really checked out Where are there more hilchas muktzeh and beitzor on Shabbos? I don't know. But a Chonet Rabba is, you cannot partake of any food that came to be on Shabbos. And that is why. Yom Tov Shechal Achar Shabbos, Beitzah Shenol, there's also, but there's Me'etmol Gamrila. And you cannot partake of food that came into being on Shabbos or on Yom Tov. So the Shiltas says, and that obviously is Shita Rashi. Muktzeh da'achila is v'chinu asashi. Other Rishonim say no. Chonet Rabba is a din mesuyim, only food that came to be on Shabbos. Yesh ma'ayim, but not something that is muktzeh da'achila. However, Rashi, the She'iltas, Shita mekabetzes and beitzah da beizah mit beiz, explains Rashi this way. Muktzeh da'achila is also min Torah. The Pnei Yeshua, Shabbos Mem Daled Amid Beis, says the same. Shuvas Chasam Sofer or Chaim Simen Ayin Tes. Chasam Sofer has a lot of Chedushim on Masechet Beya, and he has a Psicha on Beya, and a Beis Beis Amid Beis, the Psicha, so the Chasam Sofer from three different sources. Muktzeh la'achile is also min Torah. So besides the Chedushim we just mentioned, is there any clear source in the Gemara that there are two dinim in Muktzeh tilpel and achile? Yes, Shabbos kuf chof ches omid beis. The Gemara says that Rav Huna, b'miktzeh la'achile svila le'kereb Yehudo, b'miktzeh la'tilpel svila le'kereb Shemen. That is the only source in the Gemara that there are two dinim in Muktzeh. Rav Huna is machbir b'muktzeh da'achila. You cannot eat something that is muktzeh. Muktzeh da'achila svila le'kereb Yehuda. Machmir muktzeh la'tilpel svila le'kereb Shemen shemeikol. Halacha l'maisa, I don't think there are any differences between muktzeh da'achila and muktzeh la'tilpel. Whatever is also b'tilpel is also b'achila. Whatever is mutar b'tilpel is also mutar b'achila. Negiah. Is a person allowed to touch a devar muktzeh without moving it?
What about the dates that someone dried on the roof? The person who dries fruit on the roof.
That's muktzeh l'tilpel, not only l'achila.
No, but imagine the case where the person dried it a couple of days ago, and he's not sure if Erev Shabbos it was ready or not. So we would say maybe it would be mutter to move. It's only safek d'Rabbanan, but to eat it, if we're saying it's d'Oraisa, then he'd have to be machmir.
Yeah, but halacha l'maisa, I don't think the poskim say that muktzeh l'achila is also min Torah. That is Rashi and the Shiltas, but the halacha is in accordance to Tosos and the Rashba, that both are midrabbanan. Is it mutter to be nogea b'muktzeh? Yerushalmi beitz yutes amid beis. Koifen kli ala beitz shalot tishaver. We find out in Yerushalmi that is not found in Babli. Ubervad shelo yigaboy. So the Yerushalmi says, when you put a kli on an egg, because eggs are so fragile, and you don't want the egg to break, so you cover it with a kli, but you need to be careful not to touch the egg. Is this a source? Yesh is a negiah b'muktzeh, machloikis, Magid Mishnah, and the Tumas Hadesh. Shini Tzivov Shechanur quotes this halacha. The Rambam does not quote it, but it is in the Ravid Perik Chofei Halacha Chov Gimel. The Magid Mishnah on the spot says the Kpeda not to touch a muktzeh is a din which is unique only to an egg, because an egg is round and it's very difficult to touch. It shouldn't move. It's like touching a ball. Anything that is round, if you touch it, it might move. And therefore, Chachamim asked even to touch a beitza. Especially when you put a kli on a beitza, you know, when you touch it with your finger, you could be careful. But if you're going to put a kli on a beitza and it's going to touch, it's going to hit the beitza, it's going to move, it's going to roll. So this din is unique only to a beitza. Ve'ein lilmoid, and this is again Chumash. Chumash Hadesh says this is a broad rule. Osen agoya b'miktzeh letzorech hamuktzeh. Letzorech ha'odam there is no esa. But letzorech hamuktzeh osen agoya b'miktzeh. According to Tumas Edition, Siman Samach Zayin, this is a general rule in Muktzeh. Not only a base because you're going to roll it, you're going to move it. Also, Lengoya B'Miktzeh L'Tzoyrech HaMuktzeh. Muter L'Sheves Alavnei Binyan. Because that's Tzorech Odom. The Tzorech Odom, there is no Yisrael of Negiyah, as long as you don't move it. You could sit on the hood of a car. Maybe you're moving the car. But if you're not, you could lean on a car, Tzorech Odom, and there's no chashash, you're going to move it. So according to Tumas Hadeshen, Osel and Goya B'Muktzeh L'Tzorech HaMuktzeh. The Beit says Muktzeh, and you want to keep it from breaking, and that is why there's an Isanagiyah. Mogen Avrom, Shin Yud, Siv Kot Gimel, Da'atoy Lahachmir, Kamoy Tumas Hadeshen. Biraglo disagrees with the Mogen Avrom, and the Gaon says, Alochi K'Magad Mishnah. This din is unique only to a Beitzah. Mishnah Brura, Shin Ches, Sivkot Yud Zayin, brings both opinions, and he's not Machriya. Shin Yud Chav Beis, he sides with the Gaon, Lekula Kamagad Mishnah against Tumas Hadeshen. So could you touch Muktzeh? If it's not L'Tzorech HaMuktzeh, and you're not, there is no Chashash, Tilukul, everybody agrees you could touch Muktzeh. So you could lean on a car. Could you lean on a tree? No. That's a shvus. Nothing to do with Muktzeh. That's a shvus. Ein soichem al ilan. Kama ein oilan be'ilan. That's a gzeira. Not mitam Muktzeh. And if it's tzorech ha-Muktzeh, but there is no chashash tilton, that's a machloikis, Mogen Avrom and Gra, Magad Mishnah, Tumas Hadeshen. Shabbos Chof Chesed Med Beis, Ein Madlikin B'Yamtev Mepsila Shehu Muktzeh. Why not? You're not metaltal the psila. Is there Isser Hanua Menam? Is it Mutter Lahenois Menam Muktzeh? Toises Psochim Chof over Med Beis. There's a sugi of Shvach Eitzim Bepas. If you heat it up in oven with Eitzim Avodah Zorah, even though the wood was reduced to ashes, no longer Be'ain, but the Pas is also. And that is the din of Shvach Eitzim Bepas. If you derive benefit or pleasure from the Pas, it is as if you're in a henna from the Eitzim. So Toysus asks, Atse Muktzeh doesn't answer the Pas. So Toysus says, Muktzeh is not also Ba'anoah. By Yisurei Achila, there is no Shvach Eitzim Bepas. Shvach Eitzim Bepas, the concept of Yisanoah. Muktzeh, there is no Yisanoah. So let us just set matters straight. There's in this Achilas Muktzeh, Tilkel Muktzeh, and Agiyah Muktzeh is a Machlokes Tumas Hadeshen Magad Mishnah, Mogen Avrom Biragro, Mishnah Brura. There is no Isser Hanoah. So lama ein madlikin mepsila. There might be a difference between Hanoah and Shimush. Shvach Eitzim Bepas is Hanoah. You're nehane from the Eitzim when you eat the bread. But right now you're not mishtamish be'eitzim. Shimush might be also, but what is the difference between shimush and hanoah? So if you're using a psila, lahadlik esaner, you're mishtamish. So you're touching it, and not only touching it like the beitza, you're mishtamish, you're using it. Also, leishtamish b'muktzeh. So why in Shabbos Kuf Chof Hayom et Beis mutar l'sheves el avnei binyan? Avonim del hamiyochid of binyan and the muktzeh, you could still sit on them. And then Mogen Avrom brings us the loch and Shin Chof Hay. And Rabbi Kiva in Shin Chof Hay wonders, why is it different than psila? Lama ein madlikin me psila, mutar l'sheves el avnei binyan. Why is sitting and Muktzeh defined as hanoah, ve'ein isur b'hanoah, ve'ein isur b'negir, because you're not being, there's no chashav shtiddle, and it's not a tzorech avoni. But why would it be different than a psila? That's the Bekiva Egis kasha. Shtei tshuvas v'dova. Maybe the Isser Muktzeh is only biyad v'lo b'guf, like kasha al gabe mito. We will get to this halacha ultimately. Big machlokes, Mishnah Brura, Chazanish, and other achronim, is there Isser Tiltul Muktzeh? You're not using your hands, you're using your body, you're using your elbow. There's a Devar Muktzeh on your Shabbos day. You're not going to use your hands. Could you use your two elbows to pick it up and take it elsewhere? Most poskim say Tiltul Bagufa, there is no Isser. Chazanish says there is. So maybe that's the reason you could sit on Avnei Binyan, by Hadlukum and Apsili using your hands. It's not Tiltul, it's Shimush, but just like we find the difference of Tiltul between Yad and Guf, same rule might apply to Shimush.
Even if you wouldn't have to touch it directly?
Or maybe sitting on stones is Maseh Etz Ba'alma, that is not Issa. Masha Enken, when you take fire from the Psila, maybe that is more Shimush, but this is a question in which I do not have clarity. I still think if you will come up with something, I will be interested to hear. Rabbi Kiva Egetz in Shin Chofei deals with this question. So today we spoke about the 5 reasons why Chazal Asad Muktzeh and the 5 different categories of Issa Muktzeh. Tiltul, Achila is also, Chomer Tvei Metilkul, Tiltul is also, Hanua is Mutar, that's Psofam Kuvov, Shmach Eitzel Bepas, Negia is Mutar, however, Bebeitza we find it's also, and even though it's not in Babli, only Yerushalmi, the Rabbit brings this din, and the Bis Yosef and Shulchan Aruch brings it in. When you're koy for Kollel Gabe Beitza, you need to be careful not to touch it. Ala Machlokes Mugen of Rome and Biradro, which is based on Tum Sedesh and Anakid Mishnah. And then Shimush. And Shimush is somewhat a dilemma. Ein Madlikim Mepsila Shemukse, even though you don't need to be metallic. And on the other hand, Mutar L'Sheves Alavoni, and Rabbi Kiva Eger asks why, and we suggested some nafkaminas. So today was a general overview, a general introduction, and Eis Hashem will get into many more details.
What's Tosfos' case of having bread that has the benefit of Muktzeh in it? I mean, if it was lit on Shabbos, so it's Meiser Shabbos, so it'd be also for a different reason.
We're dealing with Yom Tov, not with Shabbos.
But it wouldn't be Muktzeh.
Eisim Shenoshlu, you're not allowed to put it into the Tanner, but if it's in the Tanner,
So set it up.
you could use it. Yeah, but you're not metallic. You're not metallic. You're just putting in the bread Yom Tov, and Yom Tov is a meheto.
What's Tatab Shad in the first time of the Rambam? How do we put together the 2 reasons that he starts off?
It seems to be one reason and not 2, even though it's somewhat.
How's it one?
Because the Isser of Helichoch b'Shabbos and the Burach b'Shabbos is also to develop the Argosha of Kedushas Shabbos. It shouldn't be like Choyel. And according to the Rambam, because if it's going to be like Choyel, we're afraid you're going to be too active and you're not going to rest. But there is a Chiddush to be mefarish Divrei Anovi in that way. Lule Divrei Rambam, we would say it's just our Argosha of Kedushas Shabbos. Shabbos should be different. Shabbos should be sanctified. Talk differently, walk differently, and that is the reason that you're not allowed to run on Shabbos. So maybe the Rambam just is a stretch or a harchava of the concept from Shelo Yehei Kechoyel. But L'cha'oira, the Rambam's Loshen is mashma, it's one time. I would split it into 2. And if it's 2, then we have 6 reasons. for Muktzeh and Shabbos. But in the Rambam it's mashma, it's one.
According to the Rambam's third opinion, why are regular derabon and malachas not considered shvis nikaros? I mean, the regular person, throughout the course of the official, there are a lot of different halachas that a person will engage with in Shabbos.
Because people are engaged in different activities. Most people don't cook. Most women cook, not men. So the Rambam writes, in days of yore, there wasn't one activity that would unite all Jews, abstaining from something that they all do in weekdays, and they all will abstain from doing on Shabbos. As we said before, today there might be more things, but those more things are also anyway for other reasons. Driving a car, or using your pens, or I just generally say, you know, even if we would have no other reason to answer electronics, maybe there would be an argument of shvis anikeres. So regarding all patentim, I say a reason not to use all these eitzes would be shvis anikeres, even though we don't have the authority to be guys and no. So in the tshuva that I printed on my sefer regarding the kosher switch, which wasn't kosher at all, but in that tshuva I also mentioned this Rambam about shvis anikeres. So I don't think it is right to try to come up with new gadgets to enable people to do things which, for the past 100 years we haven't been doing, Baruch Hashem, and we're doing fine.